A bit weird, but here we are. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm extremely proud to be here, and I guess everybody that are making this project are proud of this project. It didn't pop up from the sky. We have been working on this idea and on the development of the methods and the vision, and most importantly, the concepts, because as you can see, we are still discussing green infrastructure terminology. So it's a lot of discussions to be done also in science. And we've been working on this for many years, and we are extremely proud to be here also because now is the moment where we can actually make an impact in society, or we hope to make an impact in society. And that's why we are here, because no science alone, nor citizens alone can do anything. I think we go forward when we work together. And now is the point where science has to meet the users, and we have to find out ways to make approaches that are actually really useful for what we call transformative change in towards sustainable land planning. So this is a word cloud, which you have seen many times today. A lot of nice words: green infrastructure, connectivity. But if I really had to pinpoint the three, the main keyword or the project in a nutshell, I would say that we are talking about prevention, mitigation, and restoration. So we are talking about what some of you would know as the mitigation hierarchy. You should try to prevent damages, mitigate when they are done, and try to restore whenever that's the last solution. And why we do this is because, well, we have done some damage to the planet, let's be honest, in the past century especially. And this is a picture from an NGO which is dedicated to making images available to the world to increase awareness on the planetary impact of humans on Earth. And this is just a picture from space of the night sky taken from space. And it shows a bit the extent of our spreading on Earth. It's quite impressive. It's beautiful and scary at the same time, I would say. And of course, as you can see from the name here, Anthropocene, it has been proposed that we are entering a new era where actually our impact has even changed a bit the geological layers of Earth. And I'm not showing you this to be scared, but I'm showing you this because I believe that if we don't become really aware of what's going on, and most importantly, why are we here? I don't think we can find solutions. So we have to just kind of open our eyes really, really well and be very careful on what's going on here. So this is what has happened. It's called the Great Acceleration. We have started accelerating all socio-economical trends since the Industrial Revolution, so the 1700, 1800. And but there was this big acceleration in, I don't think I can, in 1950. All socioeconomic trends now I here show only a few: transportation, tourism, large dams, but you can name it. Everything accelerated in the 50s. And parallel to these socioeconomic trends, all the Earth ecosystem trends went a bit up in the same way. CO2 emission, tropical forest loss, biodiversity loss, domesticated land, etc., etc. And the point is, it's not the fault of dams, roads, industry, whoever. The problem is that we have been, all of us, very busy in expanding, building, developing, connecting, without really focusing on what was the cumulative impact of all it. So it's not that necessarily it has to be the bad guy that we can blame. It would be nice, but there's no bad guy. We are all kind of part of this. And unfortunately, the impact has been quite dramatic. And it is like 75% of land is significantly altered. And that in the last, I don't remember if it's the last 50 or 100 years, but very recently, in evolutionary perspective, is nothing. We are experiencing an unprecedented nature decline. We see 1 million species threatening extinction, and the projection for 2050 are not good at all. Actually, we are projecting, if we don't change course of action, we are projecting 20%, up to 20% habitat loss and 15% species extinction. So we have to change the direction. And this is what, in a nutshell, what we are trying, well, the ultimate vision of GreenPlan. We are trying to avoid to continue with this trend with our eyes closed. We cannot continue just planning our land, our cabin, our development without looking at it in a global perspective. As the Swedish environmental agency said before, we need to take a bird eye view and look at what from above, what is the consequence of what we are doing. So we aim to enable management and also research and the society in general to focus on the cumulative impact of our local land planning decision. This is a video that I think speaks for itself, just to explain a bit what I mean by cumulative impact. I have to get out here. Yes. I think you got the point. So this is actually not to make you depressed, but it's to no, it's not. Ironically not. I believe that so long as we keep our eyes closed, then we get depressed when you see this stuff. But when we understand what's happening, we can see that we have the power to change the trend. We need to understand what's happening, why, where, and it's happening everywhere. So it's not that, unfortunately, I would like to say Norway is different, and it is, but to some degree. Let me see if I get out of this thing. Norway is different, yes, to some degree. It's definitely much more wilderness or undisturbed habitat compared to other countries in Europe. But there are railways, road, hydropower, power lines, minor roads, and so and so. And it actually, all this happened in the last century. So it's not been there forever. It's happening now. I mean, our grandparents didn't see this stuff. So we should be aware that this is the map that probably most of you have seen many years already, is the macroscopic effect of infrastructure development since the 1900s. So in the 1900s, Norway was basically full of untouched habitat. This is a map from Miljødirektoratet. And in 2018, you can see what is left of areas far away, further than 5 kilometers from infrastructure. And this is the change, 88, 2018. So this is just 30 years. So it's happening very fast, and we don't see it until it's here. If you look at the place, I'm Italian, the place where I see is where I live is totally just infrastructures, and my grandmother perceived the forest around her house. So it's happening fast. So how does all this affect species? We need to understand how it affects species and how to kind of change the trend. So as you probably know, or some of you know, I've been working quite a lot on reindeer. I'm working on reindeer. And I'm going to talk quite a bit of reindeer because we have developed a concept, a method, and a vision based on this species, which is actually quite a good case study species because they live in big groups. I don't know if you understand here, but you are seeing whoa, 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 too much stuff. The pointer. You are seeing here about 7,000 animals migrating. So this is a lot of animals. They live together. They're very sensitive to infrastructure. So it's very easy to study them, and it's because we have fantastic GPS data, and it's very easy to use it as a model species. So this was just to make a bit of a caricature of what happened for any species. You can think of reindeer, but you can think of a plant, you can think of a fish, anything you think of. So there's some core habitats, some area that is kind of most important. The one that also Joachim mentioned before are most likely to be protected because it's clear patch of core habitat. Imagine a winter pasture like full of lichens for reindeer. And then you have another habitat. Like imagine that this is the end of the migration. Imagine that they go from the winter habitat to the summer habitat. And of course, you have a corridor. So this is the core of the whole project. This is what we call ecological network. You can call it green infrastructure. You can call it as you wish. But what we call green infrastructure in this project is the mix of ecological network and corridors. So it's the core habitat and area to use to connect these areas. And I said it can be applied to plants. I mean, imagine pollen, imagine insects, imagine gene flow. So this is applicable to any species. What infrastructure do is that they can affect either the core habitat or the corridor. And it is bad in both cases. So far, we started from 1870, I think, with the first 70, with the first national parks to protect habitat, and that's very good. And that means protecting core habitat. But as also Joachim said before, it's not sufficient. Because if we protect this habitat, but we cut the migration in two, we already won't make it. They have to go from summer to winter habitat. So you need to protect the entire ecological network. And this is the point of the project. So we need to protect the ecological network. And I see it, as I used to say, as a two sides of the same coin. You have the ecological network, and on the other side, you have the cumulative impact of human activities. So the two have to go together, ecologically, politically, and I underline the word politically. So there's to be a link between land management and biodiversity management. And of course, we need to find methods to do so. And it's not so obvious because in science at the moment, we don't have a clear definition of green infrastructure, but we also don't have a clear definition of cumulative impacts. It's just not there. So we are trying to develop it in the past decade, but there's no widespread and well-accepted definition of cumulative impact, which is a problem, because if there's no scientific definition, how can land planner ask scientists to help if we don't know how to help, right? So we are trying to develop a method. And cumulative impact, everybody understands intuitively what it means. It means that you have, for instance, hydropower. Now I'm using reindeer as an example. These are infrastructure that affect reindeer. You have hydropower, roads, ski, resort, wind power, you name it. And each of them have some impact on reindeer, but that's not the main problem. If you just had a reservoir, I keep messing up. Just at the reservoir, reindeer would walk around. If you just had a road, maybe reindeer can cross it at some point. But when you have all together, then you create a problem for reindeer. So basically, what our framework implies is that human activities, each human activity, has an impact on habitat loss. So if you build a road, you take away some habitat, you put asphalt on it. The same road has an impact on fragmentation. Same thing for every infrastructure that you mentioned. And together, they create a cumulative impact on species, and not just one infrastructure, but all of them. So we have to measure this in a spatial explicit way, in space, in a given place. To do this, I will make it a bit short here, but you need a lot of information about species, about metapopulation dynamic. You need a lot of data because land planning need high resolution maps, and we need very efficient algorithms. So we try to, and all these things are dealt with in different disciplines, and we try to bring all these disciplines together. So we try to get the good guys in the different discipline and put them together and try to make a coherent framework to study cumulative impact, and therefore help land planning. Again, on my reindeer. This is just to give you a concrete visualization. It's an illustration of what I mean. So this is about Setesari-Filke. Some of you would know the area, not yet now, but in the next slide, because this one is in 1900. And then then they built the hydropower reservoir in the middle there, which is Blåsjø. And you can see the difference before and after. So it's quite a bit of land got flooded. But that's not it. Then a lot of infrastructure have been built around. And reindeer before used to move all over the area, while now they are a little bit more stuck in some areas. So what is the impact of all this, cumulative impact of all this infrastructure on reindeer? And how can we help land planning? So the first thing that everybody do is they focus on rightfully so, they focus on each little pixel, so on each little point of the landscape, here, 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 and here, and you quantify what is the habitat lost. I mean, in the case of the reservoir, it's quite easy. It's just flooded, you lose a road. But you can also study habitat loss a bit more appropriately. For example, a road is lost because you have asphalt, put asphalt on vegetation, but it's also lost because reindeer avoid an area around the road. So it's a bit bigger than just the infrastructure itself. And when you model habitat loss, you can imagine that all this area the black area is kind of gone for a reindeer perspective. And you can imagine that the rest is suitable. So this is the maps that Trond was showing before. This is very often used in management because it's a suitability map. Green is good, black is bad, simple. More kind of advanced models also look into barriers. So, for example, we know that reindeer cannot cross this infrastructure or cannot cross this point. And these two kind of maps, the maps of habitat loss and barriers, are given to management quite regularly. But I feel that we felt that there was not enough, because what you do with this map, in the sense, is useful, definitely is useful. But what does it tell you? I mean, there's good habitat for reindeer here, there's good habitat for reindeer here. And if you had to build, for instance, a wind power plant, is it more useful to put it down there or up there? This map cannot answer the question. This map cannot help you to prioritize. The map tells you that you have good habitat here, that you have good habitat there, but it doesn't tell you if it's better to put the wind power here or elsewhere. And that's because these maps are focusing on a pixel, on each little 100 meter per se, without considering that the pixel is part of a landscape. So as has been said before today, you need to take a bird eye view. You need to scale up and look at the landscape from the top and understand the dynamics of the landscape altogether. And this is what we do. So rather than considering all suitable habitat around, which is true, I mean, this could be suitable for reindeer, this could be suitable for reindeer, but we want to consider, we invented a new kind of metric, which is taking into account what is suitable and connected. So this is actually what is left for reindeer, because they cannot cross this area. They cannot get here. So it would be good here, but they cannot get there at the moment. This is a caricature, of course, not the real situation. It's a bit more complicated. But so by doing this, we managed to quantify this area. For example, we can say it's 100 square kilometer of habitat that is good and well connected. So this is one of the maps that we are really proud of and that we really would like to explain and make sure that people understand well. This is good and well connected. Reindeer can go anywhere inside this thing, but they cannot easily cross and go to the other potentially suitable habitat. Once you quantify, once you put a number to it, you can also play with the landscape and you say, well, we can guide impact assessment. For example, what is the impact of building a wind power there plant? Well, you can imagine if you build a wind power there, you lose the habitat on top here. And so you would go down, for instance, 30 square kilometer. So you can have a quantification of how much habitat you lose when you build an infrastructure. We can also simulate the effect of restoration in the same way. Imagine that if you focus on this part now, on the center, imagine that we restore this habitat here. Then what happened that the reindeer can actually walk down there and you can gain 50 kilometers, for instance. So the point is, once you quantify what is good and connected, then you can play with the landscape and you can put numbers on things. As it has been said before, all models are wrong, but we are getting there. And if you work well on it, they're not so wrong anyway. And in any case, we have an objective way to quantify the cumulative impact of infrastructure, the cumulative impact of adding a new infrastructure, and the impact of removing an infrastructure, so mitigation, compensation, and so and so. And most importantly, we can understand priorities, because with the normal traditional maps, you can understand what is suitable, but you don't understand what is most important. If you have 1,000 kroner, where do you put them? with this approach, when you quantify things, you can start prioritizing. So just to make a very concrete example of reindeer again. So as said, this is just quickly what we did before. So first you model the quality of the habitat, but focusing on each pixel alone. Then you model the barriers. Then you put connectivity models. So actually what we do is we imagine that there's a reindeer here, is computation. We connect each pixel to each other pixel in the landscape, take into account how good it is and where are the barriers. And so we make these maps. And there are two ways of showing. One shows the functional habitat. So this, the green habitat, the yellow habitat is the one that is most connected and good. And here you can see all the movement corridors. And when you do that, you can do simulation. As I showed before, you can remove a house of roads and see how much habitat you get before and after, or how much connectivity you get. So this is the basic work that we did on reindeer, but we will apply this to hopefully many species. Just to show the results quickly, so we had the national scale maps of habitat quality for reindeer. Green is good. And we can quantify, for instance, so in that map, you get all this information here. So you see that if an area is bad, it's because there are houses, and houses have an effect up to 10 kilometers. Like a village has an effect around the village up to 10 kilometers. Roads with a lot of traffic have this effect. Roads with low traffic have this effect. Private cabins, tourist cabins, power lines, railway, grazing animals, and all the vegetation variables. So we can model really a lot of stuff, as Trond before explained. Same thing we can do with permeability. These are the barriers for reindeer in Norway. The black you cannot cross. And it, for those that know reindeer, it corresponds quite well with the management area, because simply reindeer are divided by humans. But not 60 years ago, not 40 years ago. The last migration actually up here was documented in 73, when I was born, more or less. So this is happening now. And then we can do, again, take a bird eye view and look at the connectivity. Again, this is an area in South Norway, Setesdal. Whoops, sorry. Setesdal. And this is the quality seen before, these are barriers, and these are the functionality and the corridors. And you can see on top, I put the GPS data of reindeer, so you can see that it fits quite well with the GPS data. So it's kind of validated. We also validate it statistically. And then we can simulate the effect of landscape changes. This is a Snoetta. You don't see it yet. We have been collaborating tightly with local users, and they told us, well, you could do this and this simulation. So, or you can imagine to, for example, remove this road up here in Aursjön. You can build a bridge in the middle of Aursjön. You could, in fact, remove the Skyttefelt, which has been removed, and so and so. And now we show how we can simulate that. So we focus, for example, we focus here on this area, and we try to remove the Skyttefelt, which has been, for the English speakers, it's a military area that has been actually restored. And so what we do is we can see before and after. So we have the shooting range, we have a cabin, we have a road. This is a road, this is cabin, and these are trails. And this is habitat quality, and these are the barriers. And if you look at the area now, you see before, when this infrastructure were present, and after. You can see that you gain green habitat, and you remove the barrier. And the same thing we can do with the kind of functionality. These are the maps with the connectivity, the network models underneath, before and after. So we gain 20% of functional habitat, which can be translated into 33 kilometers of the best habitat, which is actually more if you consider normally good habitat. And you can see 22% of corridor. I put it back and forth again. So with infrastructure, without infrastructure. So these kind of simulations are possible. Of course, you need a good model. And I just showed the same area as we've seen before. This is Refilke, where we build this big hydropower. And what we do here is we simulate the removal of all the hydropower in Setesdal. So if we remove the hydropower and we go back to the 1900, what happened is this. So this is today, functionality of the habitat. Here you see the entire study area, and this one here is a clip here. So today is like this. If you remove, you go back to 47% more habitat just in a few years, my lifetime actually. And if you look at the corridors today and before, 44% more. And actually, it is quite, well, it's impossible to validate. But if you look at the historical maps using the pitfall traps, they were trapping reindeer in the good old days, they fit quite well with what we say. There were actually many maps under the reservoir. So we know that they were passing there, in fact. And actually, if you want even a more dramatic thing, you remove all infrastructure. And this is what maybe it looked like before the Industrial Revolution. So this is reindeer. But we started asking, sorry for the layout, we started asking, well, can this approach now be developed for other species? Because, yeah, good with reindeer, but they live in Norway, and that's kind of it. And yes, so we have, as said before, Erik Stange et al. Made this analysis on using moose insect living in old-growth forest and pollinators. And we use very different data. With reindeer and with moose, we have GPS data, so it's super good super good data, and we can do quite good analysis and statistically quantify the habitat. While when it comes to, for example, insect connected to old growth forests, we just use expert assessment. We basically classify the land cover based on, is it good, very good, so and so good for this species. So technically we can do it. Of course, the quality of the model and the result depends on the quality of the data and on the quality of the work that you put in it, but it's possible. And actually, after we published the first papers, it has been applied a bit all over the world on several species. So we are confident that we are on the right tracks. And then the question is, can this approach be useful for land planning? Can we develop more tools for land planning? And well, yes, we thought so. So that's why we thought, well, maybe it's time to apply for a NFR project. And so we did, and we got GreenPlan. So in GreenPlan, we have the big news is we have a huge set of partners, and I would call it the dream team, because we have a part of very especially good people, but also good institutions. Because now we can really try together to see how can we improve this. I mean, this has been done in an office by a few researchers. We want to make it available for concrete land planning. So we don't know what is the solution. And in GreenPlan, we want you all to help us to find out how best can this be useful for land planning. If it's not useful, tell us. If it can be improved, go ahead. So we have the partners are the Environment Agency, the Road Authority, several communes, the university, and we have quite a broad reference group with, trying to translate in English, the Norwegian Water Directorate, the species something, data provider, the tourist, the hydropower commune, and big project, research council project that are also supporting. And we have an enormous advisory group, and we will have, but a science policy arena for dialogue, but Trond, no, sorry, Erik, where is Erik? We'll talk later about this, so I will not say anything about this now. So what we do is, as I said, we aim at producing maps for a lot of species. They have to be national maps, so it can be useful for land planning at every municipality, at every fylke, and so regionally and locally, all over Norway. We are planning to cover mammals, plants, birds, and amphibians, possibly. And we will put these maps, national maps, in a database, which temporarily we call the Norwegian Ecological Network database. And the idea is that we want to start standardizing maps. So then municipality, fylke, and the country itself would have available standardized maps. And we hope, my vision at least, is that even when the project will be finished in 4 years from now, 5, we will possibly be able to give guidelines for future projects that could feed in the data, so that this is not going to be just a project, but I hope that this could be the beginning of a standardization of data, because if you want to do land planning, you cannot change everything every 2 years. So we hope that this could be the start. We can probably try to develop together with the directorate a set of criteria for, and also in Bank, a set of criteria for the maps that should be fit in, and they can come in from several projects. So that's my vision. Let me see if we get there. Which species? It has to be decided based on the availability of data with national coverage, the quality of the data. Of course, we will use the best available data, like tracking data, DNA observation, but also expert base could be an option. And of course, it has to be done in dialogue with the users and partners. And it has to be relevant for land planning. So we have to have maps that are including the effect of infrastructure and human activities on the species that we are looking at. So the second goal is to develop software, new software and tools to support land planning. And this has to be done together with you guys because we don't know what you actually may need. But so far we have tried to come up with an app that we'll show after to identify areas for conservation and mitigation. So to go further from the work from Reindeer and to see, well, here you should protect, you could protect, and here you may go for sustainable development. And we can do this for many species. So that's a new development that we want to do in GreenPlan to allow for multi-species prioritization. And last, simulation and scenario analysis. Importantly, as said, we have to do it together. Very quickly, this is the same workflow as we saw before, so I don't spend much time on it. We first change a bit. First, we go for having permeability map. Actually, probably I have the slide. Yeah. First, we make the habitat map and the permeability map for different species, like for the bees, for the moose, and possibly many other, not possibly, for sure, many others. Then we will make the connectivity map. So here we kind of scale up to the landscape scale, to the ecological network, and we make maps for the ecological network database. And then we go further and do sensitivity analysis. So we can put these maps together and say, okay, here you should prioritize for conservation or restoration. And last, we will allow this to happen for many species at the same time. So we will have to find out ways to weigh the species, because of course, if you protect moose, if your aim is to protect moose, you will probably not protect at the same time bees because they use different habitats. So you have to make some choices. And we will try to give you as much tools as possible to help you make an informed decision together with Miljödirektoratet, which will have criteria to decide how to prioritize species. So the maps we make are all continuous, but usually for management, we are asked to do categorical maps so can I build here or not? So we have to find some cutoff points and make these kind of maps. And simulation, as I showed before, you can simulate the impact of climate change, of mitigation measure, restoration. Very quickly, the whole modeling part is going to be done by work package 2 and 3, and then we have a work package on science policy interface, which Eric will describe afterwards. And science policy interface will be useful for both identifying the species together with us and to decide how the output should look like. Should we have an app, a software, AGS application? What is useful, what is realistic, what is feasible from a user perspective? And also we need to understand also the details on how to prioritize species. And then I would like to show you quickly, we got a little project which we just finished to prepare an app, which is a prototype at the moment, to a prototype app for green infrastructure management. It's a test, it's an idea, so it's just to present the idea. It doesn't have to be like this in the project. We can do something totally different, but this is just to have something concrete to talk about, to kind of give some concrete ground for discussion with the users. So I will just show you on a static map. We have one model where we show all the maps, we can choose a species here, and we can have these different maps. This is for Oslo municipality, just as a test. And we did it for moose, for forest beetles, and pollinators. Then we have another a model to compare the maps. So you can move the cursor and see the differences between the two maps. And finally, we have a model for land prioritization. So here's, if you want to give the same species to the same weight, the same importance to the 3 different species, this is how it would look like the prioritization, given that you want to protect so and so much land. I will quickly show you, if I manage. I guess I have to get out, how it looks like. So I forgot what I had to do. Oh, sorry. Yeah, now I remember. Here you go. Yep. But I don't see it here. Whoops, it's going to be interesting. So this is the app. You can access it online. At the moment, I said it's a test, so you can. I'm happy that you take a look. But the results, I mean, the maps are test maps. So in the first page, we explain the concepts. It's all about priorities, as I said before, and we have a brief explanation of what are the green infrastructure. Functional areas are areas that are suitable and well connected. Little functional are if they are quite suitable but not so well connected, and very little functional if they are suitable but isolated. So this is the major concept. And then the workflow, I already explained it, but it's just to describe this that I just told you. And we go into the modules. The first one, you see the maps. Basically, we want to make you understand how the species perceive the landscape. And we explain that we have these pixel focus maps that are the habitat and the permeability. And these are just, they're just referring to each pixel isolated. And then we go into the network-based maps, which are the functionality and the corridors. And I already opened the app here. Whoops. So here you can select, of course, you have some resolution issue, but you can select the species. This is the moose, for instance. You can select the transparency. I should have tried it before. So I said this is Oslo. If you can see, for instance, this is corridors for moose. If you make, for instance, here you can see there are two lakes, and you can see that the corridor is here. So this means that if you want to build an infrastructure here, you will kind of block the possibility for moose to move around. In the city, you see the infrastructures are kind of very little for moose, the possibility to move. And you can play a bit with the different species and the different layers. Functional habitat, for instance. The second model, I don't see anything here. The second model is to compare the maps. And I think it's probably quite interesting because you can see, you can compare the pixel focus maps on this side with the green infrastructure maps. This is, for instance, let's put moose again. Okay, so for instance, I guess if we go to town, you will see some habitat that is suitable for moose because there is some forest and there is stuff that a moose would like. If you put a moose there, she would eat, she would do something. But if you look at what is functional habitat, it completely goes away. So what the communes have now, most communes work on this kind of maps at best, I would say. But what we are proposing is that in some cases you want to use this map because this map is not helping you to prioritize. You cannot say, well, should I prioritize this thing here? I guess you know the area. No, you shouldn't. But maybe if you want to look at pollinators, it may be different because pollinators, you may want to protect every place where there are pollinators. So in that case, the areas here, the islands of Oslo, may be to be prioritized. So my point is you need to think. I don't think that if you expect a map to tell you what to do, I think forget it. I think you have to think. And we need to build capacity. That is actually something that I really would like to discuss in these 5 years with the government and with Miljødirektoratet, because we need people to be trained to think ecology and think connectivity. Because for moose, I would definitely use the functionality map. There's no point in protecting a park in Oslo. But for pollinators, I may want to protect everywhere where there's a bee, because bees are declining, right? So if you want to look at the most functional habitat for bees, well, you have a spot up here, you have a spot up here, a spot up here, but maybe you actually want to prioritize everything. So I think you really need to understand the maps, and please give me feedbacks if because I'm a kind of researcher, so I might have a biased view. So give me feedback if I show you the last bit. I think I'm largely over time. The last model here is to prioritize, to make the land prioritization. So here, let's say we choose moose. I cannot see. How do I do this? Bra, help. Control minus. Yes. A bit too much. So anyway, so we have moose, and we want to make a prioritization for moose. So we want to see if you have to prioritize moose, and you want to prioritize, for example, 19% of the land of Oslo, then this is how it looks like. The green area should be prioritized. This is a test map, so it's not finalized, but this is the idea. If you want to prioritize pollinators, you will get a totally different thing. So you give more weight to pollinators, and you will get a totally different thing. Of course, we have both the continuous map, and then we categorize it. Now it's coming. So this is prioritization for just for pollinators, and if you want to put it black and white, that's what it is. Of course, if you want to prioritize more land, that would be the ideal, but that's not usually feasible. And then we are developing some function to help you to understand, not yet finished, but to help you to understand how to best prioritize multiple species. So I spoke more than I should have. I hope you got a bit of an overview of the whole idea of the project. And I think I have a very cool last slide, so I would like to show you. No, I don't think I will. Well, the point was just think globally and act locally. So this is what it is. I don't find it, but trust me. Thank you so much.